Greetings and salutations to our fine podcast audience.
Hello, everyone.
We're back.
We are back.
We are back for us 10 minutes ago.
10 minutes
not too
ago,
long
we
ago.
filmed the other
We're
one.
knocking these out today, but we are back.
Nathan's going on vacation.
That's right.
I
We're
am.
going to get this done. Where are you going, Nathan?
To my house.
That's a vacation right
I
there.
was gonna stay
That
at
is
my
a
home.
fine
Stay at my
vacation.
home, so.
Are you going to be with the kids, without
Yes,
the kids?
yes, we'll
Okay.
be with the kids. so.
Okay. He sounds so excited about that, doesn't he?
I am. It'll be good. Last time we did a staycation, we had a really good time. So
Are
I'm
you
sure
going to
we'll
go
have a good
anywhere
time.
local?
We've talked about maybe going to the aquarium or going to like Fernbank or something.
Fun
We went to
stuff.
the zoo back in March was the last time I did a
Mm-hmm.
staycation. So we did the zoo and we did, there's a children's museum in Atlanta that was fun. So we'll probably do that. My kids are really excited about seeing A Quiet Place too.
Okay.
So,
Man,
which
you're
everyone
gonna-
probably thinks I'm a terrible parent. I bet.
You are.
Well, I don't know if that's true. I will tell you this. I mean, yeah, I am a terrible parent, but my wife and I went saw the new Saw movie on Saturday. And when we went, there were children in the thing
Wow.
that couldn't have been older than 5 or 6.
Oh, man.
And I thought, all right. I told Jennifer, I said, well, I guess we're doing all right then, because we take our kids to see all kinds of stuff.
This is what's wrong with our society.
That's right. This is what's wrong. But here's all I said to somebody. I was telling someone else's story, and they said, "Oh, I can't believe it." I said, "But you know what? Those two parents are spending time with their kids.
you
I got
go.
enough people who talking about they never spend ain't enough people sitting around doing stuff with their kids. These people are watching faces get ripped
are.
off with
And
their
it's
kids.
better than letting them watch it alone.
That's right. There you go. So
Watch
I don't know.
people
I
get
ain't defending these
dismembered
parents.
with
I don't know
So
them.
now
I'm
when
just-
they say to their parents, do you want to play a game?
That's right. Now they know. So,
Not today.
so there you go.
All right. Headlines. Everybody excited about
yay.
headlines?
Yay.
I need
Yeah.
theme music. I need some theme music. Didn't what's his
What's
name? David Letterman. Didn't he have headlines? Or
No, I think Jay Leno.
Jay Leno had
Jay
headlines. I
Leno.
know he had a theme song.
Did
I
he?
need a
Sure he
theme
did.
song. I should have one.
Who was?
He had that dude who played guitar.
Yeah, Kevin
Jay Leno's-
something.
I don't remember his name. I don't remember anyway. I just
yeah,
remember
I know
singing.
him.
Who his musical guy was, but it was Kevin something. I think.
Something.
Probably.
But then he changed when he came back.
Oh, did
and then he
he?
had Marsalis. What's his name?
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, Wynton Marsalis.
Wow.
Or, yeah, whatever. Yep. Anyway,
I saw Paul Schaefer on something the other day, and I thought, look at there, Paul Schaefer.
love Paul Schaefer. That was my favorite of the band leaders.
Yeah.
So,
There you go.
okay. Here's my first headline. And this one you'll love, Ed, because it involves animals.
I do love animals.
Ed
for
loves
everybody.
animals,
I love
doesn't he?
animals.
In fact, both headlines involve animals.
All right.
All right.
These are right up my alley.
Puppy comes this close to becoming alligator food until Florida man saves the day.
What website did you get that used the term "this close" in the headline?
It's weird headlines.
Oh, well, there you go.
Actually, I won't say it, but they're true. It's a
Okay,
reputable site.
this
Reputable
close.
site.
But it's so basically, there's an 8-month-old Labrador Retriever. His name was Jake.
Oh,
is
good old
named
Jake.
He didn't know that.
He was in Hollywood, Florida, and an alligator. I guess he's hanging out near the water, and an alligator comes up, grabs the puppy, and goes into one of those death rolls.
Oh, yeah.
So Jake's owner, his name is Mike, dives into the water, wrestles the gator, saves the puppy, pulls him out of the jaws of the alligator, and saves them both. And they both come out just fine.
When he say save them both, the gator and the puppy
No, well,
are okay.
everybody's okay. The man and the puppy needed stitches. They weren't seriously injured. But the way the guy said, he says, I thumbed him in the eye and I picked him up out of the water so that he couldn't go anywhere until he let the dog go. And he saved his puppy.
This doesn't sound like news. This sounds like a letter to the editor by like somebody's grandpa that was like, one time I saw someone that I thought was Burt Reynolds. That's my headline. He wasn't Burt Reynolds, but I thought he was Burt
Or
Reynolds.
somebody that
That's
went
my
in and go,
story.
I had my pet gator down in the pond swimming, and this man attacked him with his puppy.
Yeah. So here's the question that it raised for me is, would any of us do
Nope.
No,
this guy
No.
did?
no.
I love my dog, but in facing an alligator, I don't
I would have
think-
said, you know what? What's the number to the pound?
Yeah. There's
Where
more
do we
dogs.
get the next dog?
Because this is life. I mean, you can die from this. And
From an alligator, yes.
Was it really worth it? I mean, but I guess people say, well, it was because he saved
I
him.
guarantee you there are people that
He
are watching
saved
our
him.
podcast right now. That
They would do it, probably.
very upset with us that we're not going to go
Yes.
save that Labrador.
I'm just going to go out on a limb and say I wouldn't have.
I would not.
That's a really
I
strong
think I would.
limb.
I don't think
I'm
I'd
telling you.
go at an alligator, just in general.
Wow.
I don't like
I
that.
guess for my child, I would.
The
go
other
after
thing
an
that struck
alligator.
me as I read the headline was, and if you're not familiar, there's like a Twitter account called Florida Man.
I
Oh
believe
yes,
that.
yeah.
And it had Florida, and basically this Twitter account just pulls out all these stories that are out there that start with a Florida man, and they're ridiculous stories. And here's one diving in, saving a puppy from
Well,
an
yeah.
alligator.
If you Google your birthday with the words Florida man, there's some
story.
headline of
Yeah.
something that happened on your birth. I don't think you put your birth year. I think you just put like mine would be March 2nd. Florida man, and it'll pull up some
Something.
story
Yep.
in Florida of some man
I'm
doing
gonna give that
something.
a shot right
You
now.
going to do it?
As
Y'all just keep talking.
As the Breakfast Club host Charlemagne the God always says, the craziest people in all the world come from Brooklyn and all of Florida. All of Florida. So
Well, all
that's
right.
what Charlemagne says. I stand by it. So Florida, crazy place.
Wow. Okay.
That was our first dog story.
Yeah,
Do we have a second dog story?
No, we have a pet story on the second one, but I'm gonna see if Ed
No,
has
you go
found
ahead.
his
I'm-
Florida.
I'm- you
You're
know-
gonna keep going.
you
All right.
just keep
So I'm
going.
gonna move on to the second headline for today. Can I read this word? It's some people consider it mild cursing. So I'll just warn
Okay.
people.
This-
Mild?
Florida man arrested for assaulting girlfriend
Oh, that's
On your
not good.
birthday?
While
That's
dressed-
not good.
while dressed as let's see what he's dressed
Uh-oh.
as.
As dressed as
as a dinosaur.
no, he doesn't. As a
Probably
dinosaur.
one of those Tyrannosaurus Rex costumes. Yeah, that's
There
good
you go,
stuff.
right
Yeah,
there.
you can't read that.
They can.
Florida man arrested for allegedly assaulting girlfriend while dressed as a dinosaur.
Not,
So
first part not
apologies
good.
to all our
Dinosaur.
listeners in Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woof. You know it. You live there.
They're too busy out fighting gators.
I was
and
about to say
rescuing
they're not
puppies
listening to this.
and assaulting each other as dinosaurs.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Now, unfortunately, this next headline, I don't have the video for you to watch, but you can just go Google it, and I guarantee you can find it.
Jason says mild cursing coming ahead.
Yeah. So here's the headline. It made me laugh.
Hide your wife, hide your kids.
Badass cat leaps from 5th floor of burning building and struts off like a boss.
Struts off like a boss.
I agree with that.
Yeah. What part do you agree with?
The whole thing.
Who's disagreeing about
That
this?
he's one badass.
No.
That's a badass cat.
There
And
you go.
I watched the video. There's video of this. There's a cat, and you can see the smoke coming out of the window. Cat comes flying out of the 5th floor, and the camera
Got a
follows him down.
cigarette?
Yeah. He hits the ground, and he gets up, and he walks off.
But isn't that like Cat 101 that they can go out of anything, land
I've
on their
never
feet?
seen a cat
stories,
fall
that's
this
a
far.
long way.
It's a
guess.
long. Just watch the video. It's a long way.
That feels though like
You
that.
know what can't happen? You can't jump out of
No,
it.
I didn't say that. But me and a cat can't do. I can't do a lot of things a cat can do. All I mean is this sounds like one of those stories that comes out of like an old like 1960s movie set. You know, because they had horrible things they would do to animals, like Milo and Otis. The scene with the bear. None of that is fake. They just kept like filming. They would just send little puppy dogs out. The bear would do what the bear would do
now
to
now
the
you're
pup-
traumatizing people.
I'm
Nathan.
just saying, it's horrifying the things that used to happen. And this sounds like were they filming a video?
They're lucky Mike from Florida wasn't there. He'd have rescued that
He
puppy.
would.
Rescue
He'd
from the
climb
bear.
that building.
Yeah, I got that bear.
I want to make clear,
that little puppy.
I don't even like Milo and Otis. It's a terrible movie, but that's a
Wow.
true story.
I don't even know what that is. Did I take
Milo
you to
and
that
Otis.
movie?
No, it's.
I remember it.
I think it's from like 1970 or 1960.
It's a dog and a cat or
It's a dog and a cat that go on
If it were
adventures in the
70s,
wilderness.
There's a reason I don't remember.
Yeah. It's a dog and a cat that go on adventures.
Now it's all clear to me.
And at one point, they face off against a bear of some kind, and that's apparently the story is they filmed these dogs, and then they wouldn't do anything to protect the animals, and they just had like a bunch of the dogs that kind of looked the same, and they just like okay.
Were any animals harmed in the making of that?
That's what I mean. I think that's why they now say because of Disney. There you go. Go after Disney.
no,
That's
no,
a
we-
thing.
we're
It's the
already
happiest
boycotting
place
them.
on the earth.
Actually, we can't say go after Disney because then Disney will come after us, and then we'll have a lot of trouble with that.
They already own
They
the
can
podcast.
destroy us.
We bought the Community Christian Podcast.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I own it.
But Google,
We would like to be purchased.
Yeah,
But
that's what I said.
Google the-
Watch WandaVision. Watch WandaVision. The Mandalorian season 3 coming out soon.
Let's hope so. But Google the cat falling out of the 5th story window. It's quite entertaining.
Or don't.
So-
Jason's getting us in trouble with all these animal headlines. There'll be people very upset by that in this episode. I'm just going to say that.
Well,
I'll just say to you again, if you decide to talk to me about this when you see me in person, be aware I will not know what you're talking
No,
about.
and even if you come and say on the podcast you said something about an animal, he'll say, okay. You can show him a clip of what happened and he'll say,
So it's not things just from the 70s that you
No.
don't remember. It's like everything.
it very well may be possible that things from the 70s is why he can't remember anything right now.
We should do a podcast of just Ed's memories from the 70s.
Things that happened in the 70s. Do you remember?
That's what I say. It's be a very short podcast. You name the 2 things you remember that happened in the 70s.
Nice. All right. Well, I will come back
I
next
remember a
week.
lot of memories of clubs I played in.
Well, there you go.
They all
Jason, you
roughly-
probably have more memories of the 70s with your 4 years of life?
6.
they
Years
all
of life in the
roughly in my
70s.
mind are the same.
I had 6 years in the 70s.
There you go.
I also had 6 years.
Probably true.
You were doing good to get that much.
I will say, just to redeem us, there were no animals harmed in the making of this video, so we can say that.
Precisely. And I promise next week my headlines will not involve animals.
Yeah,
Maybe.
we'll see.
I will try not to.
I feel set up.
Okay. All right. On to the questions for the day.
Listener questions.
Listener questions. All right. We've got a couple. And again, you guys continue to send. In fact, I've got another question waiting that we couldn't get to today.
Wow.
That will come next week, hopefully.
It
And
says,
so-
"Will you please stop talking about animals
Stop
on headlines?"
talking. So keep sending them in. The link is in the description. You can send those anonymously, or you can tell us
who you are
and we would talk to you.
Yes.
directly,
So, yeah.
saying your name.
So, all right. So this week we've got 2, and I want to just preface the first one because this one's, I think, pretty serious, and we're going to try and bring levity to that because I get that the person who asked this question is asking a very emotional question for them.
We're not going to bring levity to it.
We're not. Did I say? The
You
wrong
said
way?
we will, and
You
I
said we will. I thought,
well,
I
if it's
misspoke. I
serious,
thought-
we shouldn't bring
all
love.
right, I'm leaving this one all to Jason.
That's right.
I misspoke. I meant to say not, and like I should say very plainly, being very serious. We do like to joke around, but we get when people send us some emotional questions. We want
Absolutely.
to handle that very sensitively, out of love for you and
Yep.
and thankfulness for you sending in that question. We are thankful that you did, and so we're going to do our best to do that today. So, all right, here's the question. Very straight to the point. Is it bad that I'm gay? Everyone keeps saying I'm gross. Is it gross to God? First of all, I'm sorry that people are saying that to you.
Yes, that anyone
I
would
just
tell you
wanna
that you're
apo-
gross.
if those people, especially if those people are Christians, I'm very sorry that they have said that to you.
yes.
You are not gross.
Yeah,
And
No,
you're
or
not,
gross to God.
You're
That's
certainly
right.
not gross to God.
yeah.
I think and I don't know when this is playing, but there's a sermon coming up that I'm doing where we say in the point that you were made in goodness to show the goodness of God. And so no matter who you are made in goodness. God made you. When God made you, he said, that's good. But all of us in different ways there's the image of God in us. But then there's other things in us as well. But you, as a person, are made in goodness.
Yeah. And, we were talking as we were preparing to talk about this because we did want to treat this with, the right kind of gravity because a real person asked this. And it sounds like you've already been hurt. And we would not want to add to that.
No.
The difficulty is this topic is so sensitive in our culture that it really doesn't matter where you stand on this topic. There are very few words that you can use that couldn't possibly be taken in a way that would be offensive. And, I wish we were sitting down and talking because then you could ask me what I meant. You could ask Jason, Nathan what they meant. And I hope you would hear that there was no offense. We were not intending, even if we use words in a way that make it sound that way, we were not intending to offend anybody on any part of this discussion in any way. And particularly, we want you to know that when we say, and we say this a lot around Community Christian, that no matter what you think about God, God can't stop thinking about you, and he only has good intent for you. And the one thing I know for sure about God is no matter what, he is for you. No matter what you've done, no matter what anybody else says about you, he is for you. He is constantly moving toward you. And I believe this is true about our church, that so are we. We are completely for you, no matter what, and we will go to any lengths that we can to try to help you see that. We don't intend any offense. Now, I hope we've helped you on the back part of that to say, are you gross? Does God think I'm gross? That's not true.
That's right.
The first part you asked, say it the way they asked it.
The question was, is it bad that I'm gay?
You know, I would want to say to you, if having same-sex attraction is not in it of itself it's not bad. There's nothing in the Bible that says the attractions are just attractions.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you talk about attraction is something that I see or perceive that I'm drawn to in some way, shape, or form. And when we talk about is something that, and the difficult, and I think we all kind of feel going around this is, as you've already talked about with language, is the question itself is fairly short. We don't want to make a lot of assumptions about in the person who wrote this or anything. So I think when we try to talk about even saying the goodness of who you are as a person and all of this, we are talking about God's definition ultimately of good, that when God looks at you, he says, you are good, you're made in goodness, I love you, I'm for you. And then when you ask, is it bad that I'm gay? I would assume, but I try not to assume, that the question you're asking is it wrong or is it sinful? But I think since you've used the word bad, the easier question to answer is would it be good? Would it be God's intent? Would it be what God would want in a situation? And I think that's where we have to answer the question.
And I don't want anybody to feel like we're dodging by talking about attraction. So just to be as plain as I can, the Bible's pretty clear, I think, that any sexual activity, not attraction, but any sexual activity that is outside of a man and a woman who are married to each other,
right?
That's not God's intent for humanity nor sex. That sex is intended for a man and a woman who are married to each other. And so if that's what you're asking, what does the Bible say about homosexual sex? That's not God's intent. It's viewed in the Bible. It's said in the Bible. It's sinful.
Right. Which would mean in the terms, once again, we don't want to make assumptions, but when you talk about bad and good, what the Bible makes clear is sin is anything that is not God's intent for how things should go, for the way humans flourish and the way that works. And so, as we've said, it would be sinful, but that does not correlate to gross.
Your identity.
Right, to your identity.
In fact, the word, abomination, as I understand it, people, maybe that's what somebody meant, because I could see how somebody really loosely could say, the Bible says it's an abomination, and that word means gross. Well, you're gross. That's not what that means. It really had to do with, in the place of the Old Testament, it means ceremonially unclean. Mm-hmm. Well, the part of that it means is you can be ceremonially cleansed.
Right.
Because the same thing is true of other things listed in that passage, is it's listing things that are ceremonially unclean before God. It's not meaning permanently that once this has happened, you're forever gross to God.
Right.
That's not what it means. And honestly, whoever said that probably hasn't looked too closely at that list if they threw off on you and didn't also have a little come back on themselves.
Well, and I think that's a part of when we talk about sin in general, and I can see how certainly if someone has told you that because this is sinful, that means you're gross. We tend to think of sin as if it is, I don't want to use the word offensive because I could see how it would be offensive, but in the terms of it's gross to God, like God looks at it and goes, ew, I don't want to look at that. But the truth would be, if that's the case, then it's equally applied across all sin. Yeah. But what we understand is that, and this is what I was trying to hit on the God's intent, is that God looks at sin and says, this in some way is keeping you from flourishing in the way that you need to have the kind of life that ultimately is best for you. And that sin hurts God in the sense of, yeah, because it hurts us. And because just like when I see my children making decisions or doing something that is hurting them, my heart hurts for them, but I never look at them and say, gross. Yeah. I can't believe you would do that. Now, there may have been times as a sinful human myself that I've got, I can't believe you did that. But that wasn't coming from love.
That's right.
What love always drives me to when I look at my children who are doing something that is harmful to them or is keeping them from flourishing is I want to help. And as you said, cleanse. I want to make them better. And so when God looks at our sin of any kind, gross is not the, I don't know what, feeling.
Yeah. So I want to make sure that you understand, if we have in any way not answered your question and you think we've dodged, we weren't intending to dodge,
No.
or we've offended you, we really would like to hear from you. And I mean, you can continue to reach out anonymously if that's best, but we'd love to talk to you so that we can have a dialogue and help you understand. But you're not hated by God. You're not disgusting to God.
You're definitely not hated by us.
You're not
Absolutely
hated by us
not.
as well.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Thanks again for that question.
absolutely.
Giving us a chance to
And
speak
for
to
listening.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know
Yes.
how much you listen or.
Mm-hmm.
But there's certainly a lot of bravery on your part.
Yeah,
Sure,
sure.
if you have felt wounded at all by anybody who's told you it's gross, to continue to engage.
Yep. All right. Next question, and really quick question.
That doesn't mean we will be quick
doesn't
about
mean we're going to
answering
be
the
quick
question.
because there's a lot of nuance in this one as well.
Sure.
Real simply, should new Christians read the Old Testament? Should new Christians read the Old Testament?
I would not tell anybody not to read the Old Testament.
I wouldn't either.
But
Yeah.
honestly, I would say this is also true about parts of the New Testament. I would never tell a new Christian that, hey, you want to begin to follow Jesus? Go read the book of Revelation.
Right.
Or Hebrews.
Or Hebrews. Or honestly, several of Paul's letters. I would not say the place new Christians need to start, since you are following Jesus, is you need to understand Jesus. And I don't mean just sort of get an idea who he is. You need to know Jesus. You need to really, really know Jesus. So in our discipling process around here, we drive some long-term people who think, I got to get through the Bible. We read Jesus a lot.
Yeah.
We read Jesus because he's who we're following, and you need to know what he is like.
The question actually reminded me of my many failed attempts in my life to read the Bible. When I was younger, especially, I would start in January, and I'd get me one of those 1-year Bibles, and I would start reading, and I'd go through Genesis, and
Genesis is pretty good.
I'd do pretty good in Genesis, and in Exodus, I'd start getting a little trouble, and by the time I got to Leviticus, I was done.
You're done.
And I was toast, and I never get any farther because it was plotting, and it was so detailed, and there was so much in there, and I came from a tradition that drilled into me that all Scripture is God's Scripture, and it's all equal, and you should read it all, and there's truth in that.
That is.
But and it took a while for me to actually say this out loud without feeling like I was a heretic. But all Scripture is not created equal.
That's right.
And once I finally got through that, got over that issue, I realized that there are there are places, like you said, places to begin to help me get a good foundation, and then I can see the rest of Scripture for what it really is. See, now when I read Leviticus and Deuteronomy and some of the minor prophets in the Old Testament, I read them through the lens of Jesus.
Yes.
And they are different.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're any more entertaining because they're still tough.
Yeah.
But I see them through that prism, and I see the many colors that Jesus brings to it.
Well, and you can see the apostles themselves, Paul and Peter and the guys who write the letters that we have from, they are taking passages from the Old Testament. And honestly, it was hard for me in the early days to see it because I had drilled into me early when I became a Christian, don't take verses out of context. And they completely rip verses out of context. Unless you understand that the whole context of the Bible is Jesus.
Right.
Yes.
They don't rip anything out of the context of Jesus. In fact, they take passages and they put them into context for New Testament followers about Jesus, that it all points to Jesus. But if you start over there and, you begin to think,
Well, and this is something that
you think weird ideas.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
a lot of weird ideas that originate with people saying, yeah, I know Jesus, but over in Ezekiel, he says
right.
this thing.
That's right.
And
Yep. I was just about to say that's been the challenge for me in helping people understand the faith, the Christian faith. I just did this in an email today with somebody who asked me a question about something that they obviously had read in the Old Testament or just in something they had read in the Bible and said, how could God do that? And every single time I get a question like that, I always say, what you need to do is look at Jesus and tell me, would Jesus do that?
Right.
Is that the way that you see Jesus responding to people like that? And if you can't possibly see Jesus doing the thing that you think God is doing here, then maybe you're reading that wrong.
yeah, because it doesn't mean which what I've seen people do is, okay, you're right. We are through Jesus. So that means this part of the Old Testament I can just ignore and it may
No.
not even be inspired. No,
No.
that it means you just haven't seen it right yet.
Yes, that's right.
It doesn't mean it's any less inspired. It just means it's not, it does not stand apart from the light of Jesus shining on it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, and I think it's important how we understand the Old Testament. We say on here all the time that the Bible's a unified story. It points to Jesus. It's understanding that the Old Testament is really the way that it points to Jesus is it's helping us to understand what Jesus is trying to do. And we can't really separate what Jesus was trying to do from what the Old Testament tells us about it, because then we also at the same time get weird ideas about Jesus that we had a conversation in the last one. I thought about bringing this up, but I didn't want to confuse. But in the last one, we talked about death and atonement theories. If you don't understand that Jesus was coming as the completion of Israel's story, you tend to just think God just randomly decided to come as a person, get himself killed, and raise from the dead, as if, and we had a conversation or a question a few ones back about why is Jesus' resurrection different than the other people who came? Well, it's because it's the completion of another story. And so the Old Testament is useful to us in the sense that we understand it's not only pointing to Jesus, it's helping to explain that when Jesus comes and says, this is the year of the Lord's favor, that is all. The only way you can understand what that means is by what the Old Testament means by it, that he's setting captives free and he's coming, that there's this whole idea that's based around it. And so that part's important. But as we've said, you don't start with the context. You start right with Jesus and who Jesus is. And then you can get these more beautiful pictures as you come out from it and understand more. And I think we have these conversations a lot around here with the way that we teach children's stories. There tends to be a way in the Old Testament that we really point to people and we think the point of any given story is we're supposed to do what that person did. And I even mean in small stories like David and Goliath that God's going to help me conquer the giants in my life and that I can go and I can do any of that. That's not the point of that story. The point of that story is something God did, and that David was just trusting in God. But we take these things and we go, so no one's actually saying if you can run across a giant, go get some smooth stones. Like, no one's saying that part, but it is the way we talk about you can be brave or you can be this. It's you can trust that the God who killed giants and raised Jesus from the dead will also, you know what I mean? That all these stories, because when I tell the stories to my kids, and I know we do this here as well, we don't leave out a lot of the other parts. So when I tell them the story about David and Goliath, I always end up by going, and they say, wow, David was a great man. I said, he was. And then he took advantage of a woman and he killed her husband. And the whole point is, the whole time you're reading the Old Testament, you look at Abraham and you go, wow, this is God's chosen one. And you go, oh, he messed it up. And then you go, oh, here's Moses and he's God's chosen one. Oh, he messed it up. Oh, here's David and God said, this is a man after his own heart. And nope, he messed it up. It turns out all of these people God used to do some amazing things. They weren't the ones who got it right. Yeah. That they are always pointing to the new and better Adam and the new and better Moses and that's who Jesus came and was able to do what they couldn't do.
Yeah, I try to say to people that looking at Jesus, if you had to put together a 50,000 piece puzzle and you only had the puzzle pieces, you're going to have a really, really hard time. But if somebody gave you a chance to see the picture,
right,
and you could stare at the picture until it was deeply ingrained in your head, you have a better chance of putting that puzzle together. Yep. Jesus is the picture.
Right.
He is the complete picture. All of the rest of this is pointing to him. It is building to him. But if you start with any little piece and go, shellfish is bad, huh?
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and
that's right.
Certainly in Jesus' time, we see this, the Pharisees have these problems. Anytime Jesus does something, and it's clear, God just did this, right? It's a miracle, or it's some teaching. They said he taught with authority. They couldn't understand. And then the Pharisees go, yeah, but Moses said, or yeah, but David said. And he's like, guys, what are you talking about? Like, you will see from me, Moses and Abraham and David, they were looking forward to me. You're so focused on what you think. You're missing the point of your own. Because he says that to Nicodemus at one point, right? When Nicodemus comes, he talks to him and he goes, aren't you a teacher of Israel and you can't figure these things
Well,
out?
he says to
You know
them
this
at
stuff?
some point, you
search the scriptures.
You search the scriptures. They point to me.
Right. He's like, you've missed them. You've read the scripture and you thought Moses was the hero. Right. You missed that. God was the hero, and he kept helping Moses who's messing everything up.
It's what I feel every time now, and we're right in the middle of another big blow-up between Israel and Hamas, and it's terrible. And we should be praying for all the people that are being killed in this terrible war. And people keep thinking the point of the Bible is Israel.
Right.
No, Jesus came to fulfill that covenant. He said it is finished. It is completed. It is fulfilled.
And the new covenant is for the whole world.
No, yeah.
Right.
So it's like you missed. You got that part really clear. There is a covenant between God and Israel.
That's right.
That's true.
Good job.
Finished. Now read about the new covenant. The new covenant. The new covenant is the light on the old covenant.
I think I heard Andy Stanley recently say, if they allowed me to redo the Bible, he was joking. He said I would put new titles on the Old and New Testament. He said I would call the Old Testament God's covenant with the nation of Israel, and then I'd start the New Testament God's covenant with the whole world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He said because that's what we're reading when we read those two testaments. So it doesn't mean that. Back to the questioner, it doesn't mean that the Old Testament should be thrown out or disregarded. It is one part of the greater
It's
story.
what delivered Jesus to us.
Exactly.
And Jesus fulfilled it for the purpose that it was given. But it is not, anyway, the answer to the question, should a new believer, I would say no to a brand new believer. That's the heart of the question. Should a new believer spend a lot of time in the Old Testament? No. Not until you really, really, really know Jesus.
Well,
but you should never ignore it. You
That's
should
right.
not ignore it because that's not, it was the context that brought us
And
Jesus.
can we say this? This is a question you didn't ask, but I want to throw out there as well, because I had this thought I was going to say, unless, but then I decided not to say the unless. I just want to say this part. I also feel like a new believer should read the Bible with others. Because I was going to say, unless you're going to read the Old Testament with somebody who can say, now let me show, because I do that with my daughters. We do read the Old Testament, and I say, now let me tell you what you're missing about Jesus here. But I think that even when you're reading the New Testament, don't just, you can. This is not saying that common people shouldn't read the Bible. This is saying that the point of the Bible was to be read in community.
Absolutely.
Obviously, if a person is on a desert island by themselves and get the Bible, God's going to, as we said, another one, accommodate you wherever you are. But his intent was for you to be in a community, because going back to what you said, or what you just said about the covenant with Israel, the covenant with the world, the point of the Old Testament is God always intended there to be a new society, that he would come to a person, but he did, and we often say that he came to Abraham, and he did come to Abraham, but he came to Abraham who already had a family, and he said, I want you to see how this works out with you and your wife, right? And then Abraham, even though he was supposed to leave his father's household, took a bunch of those people anyway, and he goes, you operate this way with them. Then he gets the nation of Israel and says, this is what it would look like if a whole society ordered their way. They didn't do that right. Then he comes to Jesus, or he comes through Jesus, but then the rest of the Bible is about the church, which is supposed to be God's new society. So all of this is to say, when you read the Old Testament or the New, read it in community, talk to other people, say, where do we see Jesus in this?
Right.
And what is he telling us about how we should live or should not live?
I always have people come up to me that had this many times throughout the years, and they'll say, I love when I come to church or I go to a small group and we read the Bible together, and people like you or somebody in the group brings out something that I didn't know before, and I learn something, and the scriptures come alive to me. I wish I could just do that when I read it all by myself. Like that is the non-preferred way to understand
Yeah, that's
scripture.
a feature, not a bug.
That's right. They're saying, how do I get that by myself? And I go, no, that was baked in.
The way it's made.
You just experienced learning God's word the way he intended it to be.
Yeah.
By people who studied and learned things or experienced things, and they share their experience, and then you do the same with them, and then the scriptures are going to come alive. You just discovered God's plan A for that whole thing. So
and the funny part to me is I have some people in my life that go, no, I get way more of it studying it by myself. And then they tell me, I get out my commentaries. Oh, so you're not with yourself.
Yes.
You're just with a bunch of dead people.
Yeah.
You bring out your dead people, and they talk to you. They wrote books. Oh, you're not alone.
So that's glad you brought that up, Nathan. I appreciate you being able to.
And we have discipleship groups where you can do that. That's
absolutely.
our we have
would
groups
love
that
to help you
are
get
designed
into
to do that.
Yes. All right. Great questions. Hopefully great podcast. We will see. Send us more, and we'll be back next week. We'll answer some more of your questions and non-animal headlines.
Yay.
I'll do my best.
Baseball headlines.
Hopefully. Well, those might not be funny. We'll see.
I don't know.
I'll find some.
All right.
Tune in next week. See ya.